This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl, episode number 130. Hello, Tim.
Hello. Today, well, it's being recorded on the 6th, the anniversary of the Capitol insurgent riot. I don't know. I don't know what it's officially called, but so yeah, this is kind of an interesting day. Here we are a year later, and it's basically as divided and as it was, it seems like, when that happened.
Well, we've already done an expose on mass delusion, so they can just go back and look that one up.
Yeah.
It's just astonishing to me the level of stupidity that this country and so many others have fallen into. And again, I don't want to go on about how technology has advanced and civilization seems to be going in reverse. I just don't get it, but that's what it is. And here we are. Welcome to America, number one in all things bullshit.
Yes. Well, as you said, here and many other places, and in terms of technology, and another place, those two twins from France, the Boganoff twins. Do you know them? The ones that had tons of plastic surgery. They were both
terrified. They're like the Wildensteins of France.
They both had like doctorates in physics, and so they basically had these science shows that became really popular. But with their popularity and their vanity, just like you see with celebrities like Michael Jackson and all that stuff, they just kept on getting more and more and more plastic surgery.
No, they really did. They looked like the bookends to the cat lady of New York.
Correct. or Pete Burns of Dead or Alive. I don't know. Little Kim has gone there too. In terms of, she's just, you can't even recognize her anymore. I don't know what that is. This addiction, and of course, Michael Jackson, I think, did the same thing. They deny they're having any plastic surgery. They always say, like, oh, there's something else happening. It's like, I don't know if that's true.
They swallowed a tire?
Pretty much. I mean, who are these doctors, though? I mean, how do they hold their licenses? It seems like that would be an ethics issue. I don't really know. But anyhow, they both died just 5 days apart from each other from COVID. And they were convinced that their quote unquote healthy lifestyles would prevent them from getting it. But yeah, and they were really, really popular in France. But then it was like a feedback chamber. Like, they had a popular show, and then they got more deformed, and then it became more popular because it was a freak show. But they died 5 days apart. They said, oh, we don't see anyone, and we're really healthy. And then one died on December 23rd. The other one died December 28th. So those are two international pop figures, kind of circus freaks, that died from.
Well, it's interesting because I told you I have this longer piece I want to get to, and that kind of leads into it because, you hear these stories too about people that have been married 44 years and they die like 1 hour, 2 days, 3 days apart.
Yep.
And it's happening a lot with COVID. And I just read this great article that I'm going to plagiarized greatly from because I just find it so fantastic. It was in Salon, and it's by Frank Burris. And the title is Inside Psychogenic Death, the Phenomena of Thinking Yourself to Death. So allow me a little time here. In 1967, a woman was admitted to Baltimore City Hospital complaining about shortness of breath, chest pains, nausea, and dizziness. She was 22 years old. Hadn't had any health problems until just a month earlier. And now she was extremely anxious, hyperventilating, sweating, nearly fainting. After 2 weeks, she finally confided to the doctor what she believed was wrong with her. By then, she had only a few days left to solve it. As it happened, the woman had been born on Friday the 13th in Florida's Okefenokee Swamp. And the midwife who delivered her had also delivered 2 other children that day. She told the girl's parents that all 3 children had been hexed. The first girl would die before her 16th birthday. The second one would die before her 21st birthday. And the third, the woman in the hospital, would die before she turned 23. Well, as it happened, the first girl was killed in a car accident on the day before her 16th birthday. Second girl made it to her 21st birthday. She thought the spell was broken, so she went out to celebrate. But at the bar, a fight broke out. A gun went off.
Oh, my God.
She was also killed.
Oh, my.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, that leaves the third woman convinced beyond all doubt that she would die as soon as the woman, the midwife, had foretold. Then on the day before her 23rd birthday, she did. Now, these sorts of cases have long puzzled physicians. In 1942, Walter Cannon, who researched and named, and we've talked about this before on the show, the fight or flight syndrome, published a paper titled Voodoo Death, in which he gave examples from around the world of people dying from curses. Now, unlike his contemporaries who suspected voodoo deaths were the product of overactive primate minds, Cannon was convinced there was a biological side to it. But it was only recently that the idea that our beliefs or our fears could kill us has been taken seriously in Western medical circles, because there was just no mechanical explanation for how something as ephemeral as the mind could extinguish something as tangible as the body. Well, now, thanks to the work of British psychologist and researcher named John Leach, this may change, and he mapped out at least one road to the unfortunate end. So more than 20 years ago, Leach, who's a survival psychologist, started to investigate why some people lived through their time in prison camps or shipwrecks or plane crashes and other disasters, while others did not. So he spent many years trying to figure out just exactly what was special about the survivors, and he got absolutely nowhere. But then one day he thought maybe he was asking the wrong question and the wrong people. Like, not what makes a few people so extraordinary that they would survive. The real question is, why do so many people die when there's no need for them to die? You know, history is full of such stories, some of which Leach included in a 2018 paper. But as far back as 1607, in the doomed American colony at Jamestown, some of its citizens were noted to have died of melancholy. So on slave ships, captives frequently died from the sulks. A few of our friends have had the sulks for far too long, really. In Auschwitz, North Korea, and Vietnam, prisoners of war would lie down, smoke their last hidden cigarette, and be dead within 48 hours. One shipwreck survivor watched 4 others die around him one by one. And quote, "I had no thought people could die so easily. Their heads just fell back. The light seemed to go from their eyes, and it was all over." So for years, Leach was researching and proceeded with these cases, wondering what exactly could cause a person to die of hopelessness. So around 2016, he honed in on the relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the basal ganglia and the way that dopamine is produced or not produced there. And this was like a revelation to him. So, quote, "Within the advances in neurology and neurochemistry," he said, "the pieces started to fall into place. After all these years of trying to get an answer for this thing, when I finally did, I thought, this is too easy. It can't be right." So when humans are faced with a threat, they deal with it in a variety of mental ways. They either face the threat head on to defeat it, try to run away from it. This is called active coping, fight or flight.
Right.
But then he started to describe the fight or flight response. There is a third option that has been added to the list, and that's to freeze. We've talked about this before too. This is known as passive coping. And it happens when a threat is perceived as inescapable. And in a way, the organism, to conserve energy until the threat passes, just freezes. But sometimes the threat or the perception of it doesn't pass. In that case, a person can lose hope of escape, and quote, "the prefrontal cortex deliberately inhibits the production of dopamine in the basal ganglia to well below its functional level." So that's associated when the dopamine is down, feeling of hopelessness. So if this continues for too long, it can bring impossible to restart dopamine production. And the person in this situation begins a spiral of disintegration, which consists of a few stages. So withdrawal, apathy, loss of emotional response or willpower, and then akinesia, which is lack of response to external stimuli, even to pain. So most people who enter this neurological tailspin will emerge from it before they hit bottom. They take in new information, they adapt to the situation. But the few that don't, they find themselves at stage 5, psychogenic death. The light goes out of their eyes. They then say goodbye. They may perk up briefly as if they finally have a goal they can imagine, a solution to their problem. The new goal, though, is death. And within a day or so, they're gone. So in January this month, Leach will deliver a talk to the British Psychological Society conference titled Disexistential Syndrome, the Pathology of Psychogenic Death, in which he will explain his thinking on these processes and their implications. But, some in the field already see it as providing the missing link to the mind-body puzzle. I mean, and we know this, as I was saying in the beginning of this, often people who've been together for long, married for years, they die within hours of each other, within a few days of each other. They just literally, they give up the ghost.
Yeah, that is known to happen. I mean, there was when we were in Colombia, I think maybe Brazil. I think it was Colombia. There's one woman that was involved in one of the shows we're doing was talking about their grandfather, and she went to the doctor, or he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, if you continue this partying and drinking the way you do, you're gonna die. And he goes, Then he goes home. He goes, this weekend I'm gonna die. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm gonna have my last rager, and we're gonna just go insane. I'm gonna drink tons, do all these drugs, and then I'm gonna die. And he did. It was like the sun was about to rise, and he like everyone kind of gathered around, and he died.
Well, and that brings us to my theory of psychogenic life. Which is what I promote, which is what I do, which is in the face of impending, immediate, ever-present, catastrophic death by so many things, I will fight to the bitter end to stay alive until I am ready to check myself out.
That's the thing. When you hear some of these stories of people surviving concentration camps, you're like, how the fuck did you manage to get through that? Or people that, a shipwreck, someone just floating in sea forever. Like, what is making you hold on for that?
Also, certain prognoses, for instance, some people, when they get the diagnosis of cancer, or this happened with AIDS a lot too, like just the thought of it is so overwhelming that they disintegrate quickly, whereas other people might. And we know some people that are long-term survivors because of a positive mindset.
Yeah,
because of a positive mindset. I think it's one of the reasons I'm still alive, considering that most of my family I've outlived them already, is because in spite of being negative since 77, I am still one of the most positive people out there.
It's more complicated than just saying like, I'm positive, and so I'm optimistic and it's going to work out. That doesn't work that way. But there are some mysteries with the mind-body connection, and it's all being taken seriously. It's just very mysterious. It's not.
Well, it's not as easy as thinking yourself better, right? Exactly. Yourself well. However, if you're in a chronic state of hopelessness or anxiety because of the chemicals they release in the body, and so it's exactly what I was just said, according to that article, is positivity. Positive thoughts, a positive direction does stimulate the proper chemicals to keep the cells alive instead of committing self-sacrificial cell suicide by an overstimulation of cortisol.
Right. The thing is, it's also, some people are just lucky to have the makeup to have that kind of outlook. I know one of my closest friends in Germany had pancreatic cancer, and that's like one of the most deadly ones. And he's 10 years, and it was like stage 3. They cut it out, and he was like, well, it's gone. I was like, what are you talking about? And it was. And another one of my friends had met him and said, oh, my boyfriend's mom, she went 5 years and was just still like the top 2%. But she was like, well, this guy though is like, doesn't even have stress. Even though she went 5 years, she's on so much Xanax because they're like, come back in 2 weeks and see if you're going to die. Come back in 2 weeks. Just the anxiety of that is just, even if you somehow manage to get through it, it's just like, how do you live like that?
And again, the anxiety stimulating all of these negative chemicals. It's not as simple as thinking yourself well, but if we want to, besides the chemical interaction of positive versus negative, there is also the energetic action. And if all things are merely simply energy and matter, then there is going to be some kind of positive or negative repercussion by the energy you surround yourself with. The same way that people can make you sick. People can actually make you sick. Sure. And I don't just mean the spreading of the COVID.
Oh, right. Well, I'm going to move on to this to this next story, because we're talking about people with brains. I'm going to talk about someone with no brain, basically.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. Christopher de la Cruz here in New York was trying to jump the turnstile at the subway.
This is so perfect and so awful. It's so awful.
And there's surveillance cameras, and he was so bad at it. He kept on trying, and he fell down. He wasn't even good at it. He put the hoodie on, like, oh, no one can see me. And then finally, in his last attempt, his foot caught, and he just broke his neck and then just died.
I mean, the subway is dangerous no matter how you look at it, even to the self at this point. But that is such an awful way to go.
I'm going to follow with another dumb way to go. Trooper James N. Norton, state trooper of North Carolina, he calls that, for backup, because there's like a traffic stop, like cops like come in for backup, even though it's basically they're harassing probably a black guy. Come for backup. He was pulling in, and then his brother, who was also a state trooper, is the one that was pulling the guy over. His name was John S. Horton. Well, they're pulling over civilian Dusty Luke Beck from South Carolina. Well, the guy, he's like, I'm coming for backup. Here I come. And then just didn't stop and just ran everyone over. He was like, oh, I screwed up. And then, of course, everyone's dead. That was another dumb story, but the dumb death story. This is here's my animal story. So the Seoul, as in the city of Seoul, South Korea, Seoul Metropolitan Fire and Disaster Department, after extensive investigation, studies, I don't know, scientific conclusion. They concluded 107 fires this year, 2021, were caused by cats.
Fluffy has been very naughty this year. Cats causing fires by turning the stove on.
Yeah, they're jumping. They're jumping on electric stoves. They're knocking over appliances. And basically, it's a real serious official warning note to society, like, keep an eye on your cats.
Well, it's weird because, whenever we go to San Francisco, and I usually stay with V. Vale at the research compound, his cat, a beautiful black cat, always sleeps right on top of the stove. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? But the cat is smart enough to jump to the side of the dials and then cautiously pussyfoot to the middle of the stove. But I'm still like, what if his hair catches fire? It can set the whole place on fire. This place is a tinderbox. And I always find it kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I mean, are cats being deceitful? Are they? Is this what's even going on there?
I think the cats have an insurance scam going down in Seoul.
Maybe.
I'm not sure, but no, I mean, look, as some oven dials, they're really easy to just slip against them. They go on, and usually as humans, we notice it before the house explodes. But
what makes them want to like knock a toaster oven off the shelf and stuff? What's going on?
First of all, curiosity has killed more than just the cats in this instant, and I think they want to get on the stove because it's warm, and cats like to cuddle.
I guess I feel like there's something a little.
Anyway,
more.
I don't know. Maybe we're gonna jump. Maybe we're gonna jump from cats to rats because that's who's
now we're talking. Yes,
that's who's on the show today. Is somebody that's. I think our next guest has psychogenic life affirming qualities, being not only a psychonaut, but one of the most hilariously positive people in spite of his fuck you to everything and everyone attitude, especially all music that's been created on the earth, unless it's the noise that comes out of his multiple digits. And that would be our good friend, Rat Bastard. This is the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Rat Bastard, producer, musician, anti-musician, promoter, general badass, been around the Miami scene for decades, has put both me, Tim, and many other manifestations on there, and glad to have you on the show, Rat.
Oh, great. Glad to be here. I was just running around this afternoon, spending money on fucking records again. But yeah.
he's also a logistics master, worked for Delta and now is retired. He's basically runs the show in terms of just logistics and sound at Churchill's in Miami. So when you roll into Miami and you're kind of in the periphery of this kind of world that we're all in here, you're going to run into this guy 100%. If you're not, then you're doing something wrong.
What records did you buy today, Rat?
I bought the Screamers first EP or something like that. It was reissued. Wow. It looked like it had like period blood on it too. It was pretty weird. I swear, the bullshit.
Well, people have been known to bleed when they happen upon your house. I know that for a fact. Usually, I'm bleeding from my ears when I'm there, but other than that, it's always a good time.
I mean, to describe Rat's apartment in South Beach, it is basically it's a full-on recording studio, record store. When I say recording studio, I mean, how many square feet is your apartment roughly?
650.
Okay, and you got a grand piano in there. You got
wait, Tim. Grand piano and an organ in the bedroom with a double bed.
Yes, and you have a vocal / drum booth. You have all the rack gear. You have a million guitars. You have tubular bells, orchestral ones you just picked up. I mean, you got a trombone. Barry, do you have a Barry sax?
Yeah, it's but being worked on right now. I have to finish it up.
How many LPs do you have in there?
Yeah, he also has a record store in there.
I'd say about 4,000, and I have about 2,000 singles. It's like one-hit wonders, and that's it. You're not, you're done with that.
Yet it doesn't feel like a pack rat, if you will. It's actually everything's very organized and in its place. So that's just a backdrop for the listeners.
Well, I can give you a tour, as well.
They can't see it. I've had the tour. I love it. You're always so kind as to give me your wonderfully comfortable bed between the piano and the organ, which is exactly where I should be at all times. Your so-called career breaches so many different kinds of musicians and musical types. Let's go back to the origins all those decades ago. I mean, first of all, what got you into doing what you do? Because you've produced people that are really musical, but yet you're kind of an anti-musician. You're really a noise entrepreneur in a sense.
It's more like blow wave, I would call it.
Well, in Miami, that makes sense.
Blow wave. So yeah, when I was a teenager, when I was in New York City, when I grew up in New York, I was in the basements of like Knickerbocker Village there near on Monroe Street, and all the bands would play in the cellars in the '60s, and then they would do their drugs in the stairwells. That's where I was around a lot of music, and they were all playing the same shit, fucking Beatles and Rolling Stones. It was the same shit, And then there was some jangly shit, Hendrix type stuff going on down in there. So I grew up in that type of atmosphere.
Then you moved to Miami, and
to Miami. Unfortunately, I had to go with them. So, I mean, maybe fortunately, because I'd probably be dead by now. I probably got killed in the early '70s. But because it was so insane down there. But the 1970, we moved here, and it was like a culture shock. And so all I did was just sit around. You couldn't drive anywhere. I was too young, but sit around and play with tape recorders and shit, and then play guitar and then accomplish nothing musically, but just it's almost like an early Henry Rollins type of thing.
Well, speaking about comedy, I mean, it was quite a long time ago that you hooked up with Blowfly.
Oh yeah, 1980. So after fucking around with in the room, and then we got to high school. It was 2 years of junior high, and my same friends were in junior high, went to the high school. So it's like we stayed together, and we started playing. I played guitar, my friend played piano and bass and drums. And so we started playing in the yard. And then my parents, they had what they called a Florida room. So it's just like big open room, and it had a bar in it and stuff. And we would just play in there and play parties. We'd have parties all the time, and we just played we just covered a song that was popular on the radio and just changed the lyrics. All the lyrics were perverted. So we just hated they came with the songs, So if you can imagine, but that's what we did. And then in 1980, I opened up a studio down the street from where I live, and all the punk bands recorded there and rehearsed there. It was like 5 rehearsal studios. It got out of hand. So
name some of those punk rockers.
Charlie Pickett and the Eggs, The Eat, Screaming Sneakers, Sick Lids, Reactions. All those people, all those bands rehearsed. A lot of girl punk bands too, which was pretty neat.
So you had the studio, you're doing all this stuff. Because this is significant, when did you start working for Delta Airlines? Because this enabled you to open up.
Yeah, but that was Airlines was just my day job. That's all it was.
No, I get that, but it,
and that gave me the money to buy
right.
gear, and pay rent. Plus the fee of each of the bands playing every night.
But also it enabled you to fly for free around the world. And you, I mean, and I don't know if that's still the case, but I mean, just hanging out with you, it's like, I'm about to fly back to New York. You're like, yeah, I got to fly to do my 15-minute noise set in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like basically you would take any gig that you wanted around the world because it was to no cost.
Like the gun club,
Sure. And then of course, but it's also connected with the studios. I mean, last time I hung out with you, we were kind of nerding out on the Fairlight and early digital sampling gear because you could go fly and get a seminar from Todd Rundgren because he just thought like, I'll show up in LA and get that seminar. He just thought you were some industry dude.
I had money because I was just there. I said, I'll be there in a few hours. Like, whoa. So they just, I didn't say nothing, they just thought I had money. So I checked it out. I was taught how to use a Fairlight. And then I just said, this shit's too expensive. $20,000-$30,000, forget it. And it was obsolete immediately.
When do people start asking you to produce them? So you have this studio, but when did you actually consider yourself a producer, or did you start becoming involved in, for instance, I want to get back to the Blowfly.
When Clarence came, like it was 1980, and he was a great producer too. So he taught me a lot of shit. I mean, we were doing a mix down one time, and it was an afternoon, and he walks in. He used to take the bus to the studio. Okay, he walks in with 2 paper bags full of bottles of liquor. And he starts pulling out. I go, now we were just doing a mix. I go, what? I go, Clarence, what are we having a party? He goes, yeah. And a bunch of girls were coming in too. I don't know where they came from, but they were coming in. Everybody's getting loud. He goes, yeah, we're gonna have a party because we're mixing a party record, so we have to have a party to make it sound right. I go, what a genius, Most of these fucking guys today think, it's gotta be real quiet, and I gotta hear it. Fuck that. You're having a fucking party record. You have a fucking party and mix it to that. Then it sounds good, assholes. So I learned a lot from Clarence Reed.
Yeah. And so, and he was doing, I mean, a lot of disco hits. And then, I mean, were you doing some of those stuff when he was around, or was it mostly just his?
I didn't really do any of the Clarence Reed stuff, but I learned a lot of production techniques from him that are just people just don't fucking do anymore, And
let's explain who Blowfly was to those who are too young or don't know. So Blowfly was an extremely raunchy black comic musician, but who also had a really serious side, who wrote hits and had an amazing voice. What were some of the disco hits he wrote?
Oh my God, man! I think he was involved in a lot of stuff with.
Yeah. I think also Casey and the Sunshine Band. He's involved in some of that stuff too.
Funky Nassau, all that stuff.
One of my favorite songs is Funky Nassau.
Yeah, he was involved. He had his hands into all that shit. If you listen to it, it's definitely Clarence. You could definitely hear part to him in all that stuff.
It's so interesting. Yeah, because the particularly the disco, the New York Miami connection with disco, and when a lot of those producers, I don't really know it that well, but I know that there was that connection with the production and certain labels, and so yeah, as you said, he had his hands in all of it. It was kind of,
and still taking the bus with bags of whiskey.
Well, that day he did. Usually he takes the bus to go. He went to Miami High Life. He liked Miami High Life. He go there a lot.
Was he a gambler?
Yeah. I mean,
dog racing.
But yeah, he was definitely a character. And the other guy that gave me a lot of production techniques and stuff is Tommy Dowd. Tommy Dowd was down here, and I got to sit on some local panels with him, and I'm talking my shit, and he's like, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's right. He did that 30 years before I did it, so he was already understand. I was giving the right advice, and he's telling the people, listen to this guy. He's on it. This is what it's all about. Not all of you are ever gonna get signed. Don't forget about it.
Was he? But he moved there from Manhattan. Yeah. I didn't know that.
He did all those famous records out of the 70s. Allman Brothers, and you name it. Criteria. He did almost all of that shit. Eric Clapton. Layla.
So all right. So you're doing all this engineering. You're building your chops, techniques, just kind of learning as it goes and bringing in your own thing.
Technically, you're learning as it goes. Technically, like, okay, you learn how to get the noise, less noise, and better angles of microphones. But the thing you don't learn is to be a fucking asshole of music, because I listened to a lot of fucking music before, a lot of music, and I hear something that sucks. I'm gonna fucking tell them, hey, that shit fucking sucks, and that is where a producer is a producer. That's where it comes down to, hey, that take sucks, or hey, get your ass in there right now. I don't want you fucking standing around. I want it done. I want it, I would do the takes. Like, as soon as they come in that fucking front door, I want that tape rolling in 15 minutes. I know I'm talking to their fucking girlfriends, going to fucking Dunkin' Donuts. That kills the whole vibe,
Who was the most annoying person you ever had in the studio?
Other than myself?
Well, that goes without saying.
My partners are the most annoying, okay? But we did have some people, that were trying to be annoying. We would laugh at them, but they would be annoying other people, but not us, because we were worse. So it's hard for me to say who was the most annoying, because we were worse than them. We were the most annoying.
Let's talk about your work as an artist. So, Live and Shave, when did that start?
That's a big jump right there.
That's a big jump. So, Laundry Room Squelchers, I'm trying to think. So, yeah.
Studio where, I was doing a mix for a band called Crank, and Elaine the bathroom was right behind the mixing consoles, and she opened the door while she was taking a shit, leaned forward and go, hey, Rat, can you just bring up that part? So, I mean, that's the vision I had. Okay. And it's a great record, great band, Crank. They were amazing. They were just in the era, But yeah, then after that, what the hell was I doing after that? We moved the studio a few times, and I was putzing around with, some of the local bands, because we had a nicer studio, so we could record, more conventional shit. And the punk rock pretty much died off a little bit, and it was more like this 90s rock shit was happening, late 80s, So I was dealing with that, mostly late 80s, this one. And then we moved the studio again to a really nice place, So we we're moving the studio every 3 years to different locations, which helped, That actually helped the vibe, of what's happening, who you're working with. And then eventually I just jumped out of the studio in 2000. But in the early 90s, we were here on South Beach, and we had the studio, and that's where I met Tom Smith. And that was just after I was doing like crazy shit, Scraping Teeth, the worst band in America by Spin Magazine, shit, I mean, we were really trying, but, it made sense. It made sense. That's where I met Tom. It was in 1991, something like that, 91.
So was it originally just the two of you, but when did you bring in Weasel Walter and that's
a big jump.
That's a big jump again.
Yeah. First it was just Tom. And I was just recording Tom. He had all these tapes and stuff and loops and shit. And then I ended up doing the vocals, taping his vocals and mixing and all that. And he was learning how to, run the shit too, as we were doing it. And we would do late night shit. And then he oh,
right. Yeah, it was originally a cassette. The cassette. I had that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we were actually recording, it wasn't To Live and Shave in LA. It was actually I can't remember. But it was a different name. And then we got it all done. The label that he was working with decided or they folded or something, and they didn't. So he's like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to put it out myself. All this work he did, I'm going to put it out myself, and we're going to change the name, and it'll be me and you, To Live and Shave in LA. I'm like, all right, that sounds good. On your shit. And so that's when we did it. We started playing live at Churchill's every Thursday. And every Thursday you had Harry Pussy, To Live and Shave in LA, Squelchers, whatever wacko, crazy, noisy, Blowwave, basically.
Blowwave. And I think it was Weasel that was telling me, basically Tom or you, I think it was Tom, was sending it out, because I could be wrong. I think Weasel had a zine that existed for just like a second. And basically Tom was just sending it out to different people. And I think Weasel's like, what the fuck is this? And I don't know who contacted who after that, but
yeah. But it got into the hands of the people from Bulb Records. You got hands of a lot of people around the, because Tom's pretty well read with the magazine, because he was doing a lot of stuff with the videotapes, video stuff. So he had there was a circuit of people that did that and were involved in music and reviews and all that. So he was already tied into all that stuff. So it wasn't hard for him to get his music to them.
So when did you guys take it to the road? I mean, because I hear the stories.
We got Ben in the band, the oscillator, and then in '95 or something like that, I had this brand new fucking Honda wagon. I said, man, let's go on tour. So we did. We just jumped in the wagon and we just went around the whole country, and we probably, I think the most we made was like $60, one show. Or
so
we had jobs. Me and Ben had jobs. We were just, to us, it was vacation. And then from that day on, all my tours are vacation. They're all vacation. I don't give a fuck. Okay.
When did you start promoting shows at Churchill? When did you realize that there was you had to fill that job?
My own, but that high school band, Myron and the Two Watts, we were called Myron and Two Watts. We were doing shows that we were popular. A lot of people would show up to our shows, like we're talking like over 100 people would show up. This crazy ass shit. The Eat played with us one day. They opened up for us. And then I had this big pie fight right at the end of our set. And he went nuts.
But when did you start booking shows for other people? Because you've booked so many shows.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first it worked out where I booked my friends. They were out of towners to play in the town, when they came into town. Also, there was that's what I basically do. I book people I know. I should have a booking agency, because the booking agencies around this country fucking suck. They fucking suck. They put bands in fucking Albuquerque over Miami. Are you fucking kidding me?
Good point.
So, but I booked my friends, that I knew by traveling, there you go. I would go see bands at CBGBs. I would fly up to New York, see, whoever's playing that night, Blue Humans, whatever the fuck. And then I would
Blue Humans, Rudolph Gray, because you're a noise meister for the most part. I mean, forget the punk, forget the disco. I mean, basically your thing at a certain point, and probably still now, is really noise based.
There is a rock element in it. There is a rock element. There's drums and guitars and, screaming and fucking, there is a rock element. It's just, it's unlistenable, because I'm trying to make it listenable, because the fact that I'm taking that and trying to make it listenable makes it even worse. Okay. It makes it more unlistenable, because I'm trying to sing melodies over this complete fucking bullshit, which has a lot of movement, has a lot of body movement. Body movement is very important to my sound anyway.
It's interesting because with the lineup of To Live and Shave that was with Weasel and Nondor said the one thing that Rat taught at least Nondor and the younger guys is that really not giving a fuck and going on the road and not giving a fuck about anyone in the audience or anything, and feeling totally okay with that was actually essential for the guys who were in their 20s at the time, who were like, wow, you can actually just like be like, fuck you. And that's totally fine.
Yeah. That's what, I'm still fuck you. Okay. But I still do. when I have 4 amplifiers on wheels running around a fucking bar and everybody's getting so fucking loud, that's, that to me, that's a fuck you, there's no instruments, just the amps.
Yes, sure.
Well, you've taken the art of annoyance to certainly a high level, Red. I must commend you for that.
Yeah, well, I just I entrap you. The audience becomes the fucking in the middle. The band is around the audience. That's why I never really, punk rock. There's more fucking action on the fucking in the audience and on the fucking stage. Punk rock bands are boring as fuck, I think, because they're just standing there with their legs open and shit, and then the rest of people killing each other in front of them. If it wasn't for that, nobody would listen to that shit.
I'm sitting here with my legs open, and trust me, I feel like killing some shit right now. I hear you. You're more into kettling the audience.
The audience needs to shut the fuck up and watch. And if you blow everything up, they're not gonna fucking be jumping around. They're gonna be like, what? They're gonna be backing up and go, what the fuck? That's what you want. Always put them on the offensive. The audience should never be on the offensive. They should be on the defensive. Always. The minute they're offensive, you suck. If your audience is fucking stage diving or fucking doing fucking whatever, go running around in circles like idiots, you fucking suck.
I think I've mastered the art of discomfort, so I have to say,
well, I mean, that's one of Rat's geniuses, is seeing the stress cracks in all these idioms and basically exposing them. For instance, those 2 guitars that you have on your wall that you won in shredder guitar battle contests, and you have all these like metal virtuosos from Florida coming in doing swept arpeggios, and yet you'd still win these competitions.
Yeah, with the guitar given away that was sitting in the sun for 8 hours and completely out of tune and no strap.
Oh, you actually would take the guitar that they're giving as a prize and use that.
To hold a guitar because there's no strap.
Hey, Rat, you helped me win a guitar. Now, when we were in Miami a couple of months ago, that would be me and Tim, and The War's Never Over was playing, and Tim and I did a show that you promoted, and you said, hey, you want to go to this record shop thing? And I usually don't do that, but I said, all right. And it was a really cool thing. There were a bunch of like cholitas. I told them they should name themselves Conspiracy of Coven of Chaos. Cock for short. But then this guy came up to me with a Roland S. Howard t-shirt, and he from Pure Salem Guitars. He makes guitars, and he asked me if I still played guitar, and I said, "Oh, not in public." And he actually gave me a guitar.
Yeah,
so I won a guitar by being with you.
That's right.
You'll probably never see me play it, but it doesn't mean you won't hear me play it sometime. That's right.
You'll get it. You'll break it out.
Oh, I had Weasel break it in for me.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
What's the next instrument for your collection? What's the next piece of the puzzle that you're searching for?
Harp or a sitar?
All right. Wait, you said a harp or a sitar?
Fucking a 54-inch harp.
Well, I mean, the thing about harps is there's no real beginner harp. I mean, they start at like $10,000.
They're huge as well.
2,500.
Really?
Go for the sitar. You can sit down as well.
Yeah,
I like a sitar can sound grand.
Both instruments have a lot of fucking strings on it, so that gives a lot of
So what's up next for you, Rat? What do you want to do? What are you doing? When I was down there last, you were talking about buying a building.
Well, yeah, I'm still working on that, and Churchill's is still closed because they're still waiting for a management company with enough money to open it up. They don't want somebody to go in there with no money. They want somebody to go in there with some dollars in their pockets. Okay.
And Churchill's is the main alternative space in Miami that Rat's been booking for years. Every weirdo and their brother who goes to Miami has played there.
So it's INC is supposed to be on with the International Noise Conference, which Rat's.
Yeah, that's gonna happen. And there's a meeting right now on a venue that's I'm gonna put it at other than in Churchill's. But if I still do Churchill's, it will be like we did last year. We did it in the patio outside. So I'm gonna do an International Noise Conference outside this year.
Tell us a little about the International Noise Conference. How long has that been going? And what is that? What is that?
About 17, 18 years. It started out actually before that. It was called the Bored Shitless Fest. And the Bored Shitless Fest, what we did it once a year, where we would have a noise band play and then a singer-songwriter play. Then a noise band and make it extremes, go to extremes. And that got adopted by, they had a festival in Minneapolis, and they adopted that format. And then after all that, I'm like, well, I don't want to do this shit no more. Let's do something else. So we said, let's do all noise. So we decided, let's do just an all noise fest. Fuck everybody. And we do a 3-day noise fest, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and all out. And that's what we did. And so that became the International Noise Conference, which we, Emil Hangstrom of Cock ESP came up with the title because it's going to make it sound important. So we get some press, That's
Did you get some press?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. We got a shitload of press. We got, we were on we got on TV shows and all kinds of shit.
So there's a meeting going down now about the next one.
Yeah, just the venue. You know, I have an option, dude. Miami's great. I have an option of like 7 venues to do this thing at. So
who are you calling in for the next one? Who's on your list?
There's a lot of out of towners are coming down. They're probably not as known as you know, but there might be a few popular people coming in. I'm not sure yet.
I'm considering it. I'm considering it.
They might change their mind and jump on an airplane.
Well, I mean, in the past week, when 17,000 flights were canceled, let's hope it's not next week.
Oh yeah, that's just because last year, January 8th was the highest day of cases last year, and then right after the 8th, which is right after the fucking holidays, it just dipped. It just went down 30% a week. So expect by next week a 30% drop, another 30% drop after that. So it'll go down a lot in the next month. I say by February, by the first week of February, it should be extremely safe, at least down here, because we don't have
the travel. Yeah, the travel problem has been the weather, the sickness, the insanity, delays. It's just been, I am so happy I stayed right where I'm sitting now.
Yeah, they'll probably open up towards the end of the month for the food festival. Remember, we have the food festival down here. Of course.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, I know we have the food festival at the Cuban restaurant every time we come down there. So that's all I know about.
And unfortunately, this year, or you don't have the Super Bowl, which was kind of colliding with the.
Oh, wait. Did we go to Is it Disco Fish you took us to? Is that? I still remember that. That was like a shit. Not even a hole in the wall, a hole outside of the wall, almost on a highway. That was pretty fantastic.
Oh, I loved it. We had seafood upon arrival, and then we didn't look back. The weekend was on, and it didn't stop. So To Live and Shave, that tour, and then there's To Live and Shave 2, which you'd be who fired everyone.
Well, basically, Weasel and
Liz Armstrong.
Okay, so Liz and Weasel got into a spat with Tom, but anybody, okay, and Nandor, and it was about money, obviously, of some sort. So he had a $300 silk shirt or something like that, but he wouldn't pay, some weird shit. I didn't even give a fuck. I just know slightly what happened, but they called me, they says, "Hey, Rat, we're going on tour to Live and Shave LA 2. Are you in?" I'm like, "When?" They said, "All right, I'll do it." So the fact that that band looks like we just threw Tom Smith out of To Live and Shave LA. That's why. So Tom was pissed, like super pissed at all of us, because it just looked like we threw him out of the band, but we didn't. It was just a whole different band. I played violin. Yeah, I played violin in 2. I didn't play guitar or bass.
Tell a little about that face-off between 1 and 2, or 1 and whatever, that happened in New York.
Well, that was later, and 5. That's we're jumping the gun.
Well, we don't have much time left on the clock here, so just let's cut ahead to that, because that's ridiculous. Hang on. Then we could get off the live and. I would prefer live and die in LA instead of live and shave, but let's just get on with that, because this is a pretty good story. So go ahead, Tim, tell us.
Well, because there was a part 2, there's rivals, and I guess Tom did some other 3. In short, jump ahead years, and they're To Live and Shave comes back. Tom's already living in Germany. You guys get some good press. You're doing the reunion tour, and you have all types of people on it. And Weasel and I were living together at the time, and he was telling me about the whole history and all that stuff. And then we're like, well, what about make To Live and Shave in LA 5? Because at that point there had been 5, and we'll book around the corner. And Rat managed to be in both on the same night.
Well, that's a perfectly dick move. I mean, that's just grand. I mean.
Yeah, what's the problem? It's I'm playing earlier.
It was Tom wasn't happy, and Nandor was off the chain. I mean, he destroyed the club. He tackled his woman. He was put into this like wrestling headlock move because the guy that ran the place used to wrestle in college, and he couldn't move. And Nandor's like, "Don't you realize I'm doing this to fucking entertain you?" But people were kind of scared. But that was a sound check. That was the sound check. And, yeah, and they let us still play, which made no sense.
No, yeah, he was cool. He was like trying to calm him down.
Oh my God. All right, so Lydia wants to get off that subject because Tom, when he fired everyone, he got Andrew WK. Thurston Moore was in it. It was like It's a long family.
Don Fleming was a key guy in it. When we came back in 2004, it was me, Tom, and Don Fleming. And then from that point, we got, Mark Morgan, Andrew WK, and Thurston. So they were at it, and we had Chris Greer.
So Thurston goes down to Miami a lot because his mom lives there. So he's someone that
down here. I DJ'd his New Year's Eve party.
Oh, he had it. Oh, I guess so. He had a party. Okay.
Well, it's him and his friends in South Miami. He grew up in South Miami.
So what'd you play? What kind of shit you put out?
Okay, I played right in the I was going to say earlier, in the last 3-4 months, because Churchill's was closed, I said, well, shit, I need to do something at night. So I put together 1,200 singles from 1963 to 1979, all hits, like all the hits. Like you name the hit, I got it. I have 1,200 7-inches, and they in 3 little boxes, and I bring them everywhere around the city and destroy everything.
And were you just kind of, did you know with that 1,200 single jukebox, like where you're going to dive in, or you just kind of threw your hands in and pulled out whatever?
Anywhere. I could fit in anywhere with that shit. I could even DJ a noise show with that stuff because people will go crazy.
Did you play Nutbush City Limits?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Just asking.
I don't remember. I got the idea from the Northern Soul guys. The Northern Soul guys would play, they would be playing records only. It was by a rule. And if the record cost $900, they don't care. They would play that record because that's the rule. You have to play the record. So if it's only one fucking record of that song, they're going to play it. If it's worth $1,500, I've seen $1,500 records being played in a bar, because that's, they have to play the record. So I got this idea. I said, well, shit, I'm just going to do it hits, all the top 100 hits, not all of them, but all the ones I like, so like 60 of the top 100 that I like. And I did, and I said, I'm going to go from 1963 when I was first started listening to music, that's when, Dylan and the Beatles and all that shit. And then 79 was the cutoff because that's after that, all the singles sucked. It was all album rock after that. And it might have dribbled into 80, 81 a little bit. But most of the fucking people that put out singles in 77, 78, 79 sucked. I mean, come on. They were still putting out fucking, Bobby Vinton was doing, I don't know who else, people like that, Humperdinck was still putting out singles in the late 70s. What the fuck? Who the hell was going to listen to that shit? So only maybe they would, out of the top 100 is like 20 listenable records after 77, 78, 79.
Sure. And when album rock.
Yeah.
Well, now we're back to the singles because, but it's in a very different world, MP3s and all that stuff.
The singles, it's not going to happen.
Not in vinyl.
No. So I figure I'm going to be the only asshole. I've been every day for the last 4 or 5 months. I've been going through record stores. I went to Banana Records, has 500,000 singles in that place. I only went through like maybe 10,000 of them so far, and I've gotten by choice. I'm focusing on a certain list. 1,200 singles so far.
And the single, in terms of vinyl, the fidelity for singles actually sounds a lot better than.
It's all right.
You don't think it sounds better than the album cuts?
But there's a lot of variables that shit.
Okay.
A lot of those records are distorted because they were pressed like shit. It might have been a burnt press. I mean, some of them are warped where the big hole where it goes a little bit of a shake, and then you can hear if it's a sustain, you'll hear it like you hear the pitch. I have a way of fixing that where I put the small hole and adjust it on the B side and put like this little. Remember those little flexi discs? I take that, I cut it out, and I adjust that to where the hole is perfectly in the middle, and I basically tuning records.
Well, so in theory they should sound better, but you're right. You're just pumping that crap out so fast.
Names are the wrong side.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. That's a classic. So you also have a lathe yourself in the place, and you make your own records. Now, I've only heard what you play because Iggy Pop was in Miami, and you recorded him doing some old Delta blues or something, and that actually sounded like some old 78 gramophone kind of thing because it's like it sounds so authentic. It sounds so real. It sounds amazing.
he recorded on, I guess, a Walkman or something, or a 4-track, I don't know what he had. And they gave me the tape to master. So I mastered it. I didn't want to really, change it much. I left it, the clicking and all that shit in there. But I just made it more, flat, more in your face. And they ended up putting it on a flexi disc, and it was announced on Rolling Stone, and it was put out by a local label here in Miami. And there's a flexi disc, of that song.
What year was that?
That was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm sitting on recording for 6 fucking months, and no one was allowed to pull their phone out to record it or nothing. I had to be, to keep it under.
You had to be discreet. You played it for me, and I was like, that's pretty cool, actually.
Probably better than most of the shit he's done in the past 25 years, but
It was an asshole is an asshole on my face. I mean, he had some good lyrics there. Yeah.
Well, look, I heard enough talk about asses when I was at your place last, Rat. And with that, I mean, I really don't have much more to say on the subject. It's just like, what can I say?
Well, Rat, as a bass player and sometimes double bass player, you actually gave me some nice insight about rosin, about rosin on the bow, because you spent all this money on fancy rosin for the bow, but you're saying it's this sports glue grip stick on that the football players use, so they can just like put your fingers out and grab it. Inside info, industry pro tip. I appreciate that one.
Yeah.
Rat, have you ever thought about writing a book, Rat?
Nah.
How about an audiobook? You could just record it into a tape recorder.
Yeah, I could do that.
Well, you'd have to remember more names than you did tonight, though. That's the only issue.
Yeah, I mean, if I got my, if I'm sitting in if I'm just walking around my house, I can remember all the names, because everything's in front of me. But it's just so many fucking, there's so much shit. When you're working with 1,200 fucking singles
and 4,000 LPs and about 2,000 bands in your career, yeah, it gets difficult.
Yeah, I don't. You just don't let me get started with the ex-girlfriend sometimes. Jesus Christ.
Well, that's the book I want to read.
That's a whole other subject.
That's the book I want to write.
I don't think you're done. I don't think you're done experiencing it yet.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, well, blowcore. What can I say?
Yeah.
All right.
Blow wave.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking blowcore now. I'm taking it to the next level.
Okay.
Yeah, that's blowcore. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, this is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Rat Bastard, producer, anti-producer, musician, anti-musician, noise, experimental, producer of festivals, promoter, and I'll leave anything else out. Fantastic host,
logistics wizard,
and survivor of at least 2 variants of COVID.
3.
Now 3.
3. Wow.
Nothing. The last one was like I said, it was like a cold.
All right, Rat. Well, keep it hot in Miami. We'll be back down to see you soon.
Oh, I hope so.